grab all my links. Modification squad. Okay. Need to leave Discord open. Yeah, I do. Okay. What else? Okay, I am live. Which is good. So now I can close this. Oh yeah, I forgot to test the chats. That's what. Unusual time for me to stream? Yeah. I wanted to stream yesterday at night, but I couldn't. Let me see. Okay. Let me see. OBS. Yeah, OBS is capturing this. Let me say hi on Twitch. Yes. Okay, it's working. Good. Everything that I need is working. Really cool clip. Thanks for all you ditched. I wonder which one it was. I wonder which one it was. Sister told me to follow you. I know who you're referring to. Let me actually go into custom game. Let me show something. But yeah, thank you. None. Iconvolt. Where's Iconvolt? Iconvolt is hybrids. Hybrid. Yeah, there you go. But yeah, how's everyone? I'm not perfectly good. I think I'm a little sick. At least I have a little bit of a runny nose. Hopefully that's no big deal. An oasis. The planting and go over the roof. Ah. Yeah, I remember. Also, I need to check one thing real quick before I forget. If I do this, blah, yeah, the way that I crop this makes all of the words show, which is what I need. Okay. Let me do this and this, and then I'll wait a bit and then we can start. I don't know if I want to start with the VOD reviews. I might start with the VOD reviews and then do the whole discussion later, because I want to share a lot of my thoughts with the community and also hear some other thoughts before I start organizing them into a script. I'm pretty sure that the offense rollout here has been patched out, because I don't think you can stand on this anymore. I think I checked this a few months ago. Yeah, you can only stand on the bastion, but you used to be able to stand here on this thing, which is important, because you needed to be able to get to this roof while having a double jump, and then you would be able to go over this. There is a rollout over here that I don't remember exactly how it functions. Right. I think I just need to trust it. Yeah, this one is easy to go behind. But I usually don't go for something like that. I usually just, if I'm attacking and I want to go there, just boom and then boom, you know, this stuff. It is very useful to know that you can go over this, this roof right here. I think even burning the double jump early, you can do this fairly easily. You can also, yeah, hug this to be a little bit more hidden. But speaking of rollouts, the one that I had in mind that I've been using a lot on this map is this one right here. Because it's a free drop and backline. You're in dash range of the mini room that you want to play anyways. You don't really do this if they have the ability to chase you and they're gonna kind of shrug off your engage. But against the comps that have like, I don't know, Zen, Bap, Ram, Orisa, like less mobile characters, you know? This is so free and so strong. And it's completely hidden. That's the best part. It's completely hidden. And all the noises coming from so far behind and so far above too that they won't really know that you're doing this. It works very well even in high ranks. Which is a rarity for rollouts, honestly. Unless you're just like innovating on the spot. But yeah, this is not what I wanted. Let me check. How many people are currently watching? I always like to wait a little bit before people join. Replay already exists, apparently. Huh. Okay. Those are the 2 replay codes that I need to review. Okay. I need to get OBS here so that I can check the messages. Yeah, not too many people are here yet. So I'll give some more time. I guess I'll start with the VOD reviews then. Because I want to have more people for the discussion. Because I have a lot of thoughts, I want to write a lot of stuff, etc. So let me check here. I don't remember exactly which code it is, and I might have to just like blindly dig through stuff. "22 minutes. Might be this one.
Ready for battle.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
I still have much to learn.
Silver Tree Genji needs help playing into Winston. Okay.
How? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Attackers incoming.
Oh yeah, let me swap over to OBS. Yeah, what up, Max? That way I can check messages too. Yeah.
Barrier initialized. Barrier has been overwhelmed.
Yeah. So. One thing to be mindful about with Winston or other close range characters, right? I mean, this works for everyone, right? Like, even for the long range characters, for example, against Widow, right? The distance, right, that you are at, right? Or in the way that I'm gonna be referring to it, the spacing, right? is incredibly important. Against the Widow, you don't really want to be far, you want to be close, right? That's where you have the advantage. Against the Winston, this range is iffy, right? It's not that you can't fight Winston in this range, you do good damage here, but you do need to do so at good moments, right? Let's say that you have your support pocket with you, right? Zen is harmoning you. This Winston is deep in your team, so dealing more damage will actually lead to a kill, right? That kind of stuff. However, as a general rule of thumb, against a character like Winston, close range is not very good. Main reason for it is because you don't actually lose that much damage swapping from your secondary fire to your primary one, but the Winston drops in DPS tremendously if he is not within primary fire range and he has to snipe you. He realistically does not want to be taking that trade very much, especially if it's gonna be in a moment where his intention is to be engaging you in close range, right? If he's suddenly in the middle of your whole team sniping for 60 damage, I believe, while being shot at by 4 people, that's a very bad trade for him, right? So a lot of it is gonna be spacing against Winston, right? Staying far enough away to where either he has to commit a jump on you, or when he jumps, you dash out and then he cannot do any damage to you other than sniping. And then he's at a bad spot, right? So spacing and also positioning in relation to your team, in relation to the enemy team, right? Cover, etc. So that the Winston jumps. Yes, he can jump you, but he's making sacrifices to do so, right? He's taking a lot of damage, he's burning a lot of cooldowns, he's not getting too much in return. Right now, this should not have been very free. Like he kind of walked into the middle of your team and they kind of ignore because they're spamming main, whatever. This kite path was bad. I'm not gonna over talk about this one. More so about like the general way that you think about the matchup, not necessarily something that's as much applied there, because Winston got to you, you try to dash out, that's it. The only thing that I can maybe mention there is that oftentimes you don't really want to give Winston the close range on purpose, because if you do that, right, you actively walk into him yourself, then the moment that you need to dash out, right, because you're weak, you and you need healing, you dash out, but the Winston has jump because he didn't use the jump to reach you, so now he has the jump to chase, and now you're kind of screwed, right? Either because you're dead or because you're alive and taking too many healing resources from your team. So oftentimes you want to be the one baiting the Winston jump first so that you can dash out and he does not have a chase. Not in a reasonable time frame, right?
Objective lost. Stop the payload.
But yeah, for example here, very important to be mindful of this. This is a good Genji position, close range, right? The kind of stuff that Genji wants. But if the Winston turns the corner here, then let me change the perspective. Then what? He's gonna take a better trade than you, you're gonna be forced to dash out, and he has jump, so he jumps and chases. And in this case, if both your supports main, you're dead. You're just dead. As simple as that. The Winston picks here, you're dead. Right? So that's not good. So I have to be very mindful about things like that. If you for example, and this is an idea that I want to explore. Yo, thank you for the raid, Arya. If you and this is some this is something that I wanted to explore in a video. I need to make sure that I actually script the video and don't procrastinate it or scope creep it to the point of not making it. So I want it to be something that I can make relatively fast. But the general idea is that while Genji's close range is great and all, and this angle is very useful, you have to be you have to not tunnel vision essentially, right? Genji is a very flexible character and he could be playing from here, he could be playing from here, right? He could be playing from here. He has many positions. Close range, mid-range, right? And in this case, against the Winston, the stuff that I was describing, I think the mid-range would be nice, because against the specific matchup that we were describing, right? We force a bad jump from him to get onto you. Damage trade between your two becomes infinitely better for you. And sure, we can consider that we don't want to be standing against the soldier's LOS very much. So maybe instead of going here, we just go here, because this is good cover, right? It instantly drop, boom, out of soldier LOS, hack. If we just hug here, yo, thanks for the sub, area. If we hug here, right, as you can see on the line of sights of the enemy characters, they cannot see us really. So it's very easy to use this position for an early poke, force them to use mobility to get to us. We disengage with our own mobility. They get a little bit of space out of it, but then afterwards they are in positions that they can't do much yet, and they're gonna be getting crossfired, right? Now, our Ram can turn and shoot, our Zen and Anna can maybe push up and shoot. Now let's say that we dash over here, we can drop here and shoot, and if they jump to chase us, then guess what, we can keep kiting and whatnot, right? So I love the ideas of the close range. You do need to be mindful about your kiting, right? The areas that you're escaping towards, to make sure that either you're gonna be getting healed and the Winston cannot get a positive trade out of them, or that you're just fine on your own and then the Winston jumps you and you have the mobility to get out, right? Doesn't always have to be a dash, can be a wall climb, although it's gonna be less likely. Yeah, let's go back to your POV. But yeah, one thing I want to mention, later on I want to make a discussion on Genji's balance state right now. What I would like to see in terms of like balance tweaks potentially, perk reworks, just some also general game balance stuff. I would like to have more people around for that, so I probably will wait, but if people are interested in having the discussion soon or even now, I'm down to do that too. I'll be wanting to take some notes so that I can write a script on it and post a video with my full thoughts. So that's kind of like the plan for this stream, right? I want to do some VOD reviews before the patch, which is gonna be later today, in a few hours, and then wait, where was I? I want to do, yeah, I want to do 2 VOD reviews before the patch, and I want to do to collect a lot of thoughts before the patch. I'm not obviously gonna be able to finish the video before the patch, but I don't feel like I need to finish the video before the patch is out. Even if they already address the stuff that I am currently annoyed by with like Genji in relation to other characters' power level, right? It's still gonna be fine to just add that in, right? And if they don't, then sure, then I'm not time constrained anyway, so yeah. Grinding fishing, alright, good luck. Okay. Yeah. Prefer to the end. Yeah, so we're just a little bit too close, right? And it's not just that we're a little bit too close here. We don't have our dash yet, so the Winston is gonna land his melee, he's gonna land his jump damage, which is gonna be like around 100 total in the combo, right? Plus all of the poke damage that he's doing as it drops with the zap and stuff. So very important to be able to dodge that burst. And one of the best ways to explain how important this burst is for him is to think about your own burst, because your own burst is very similar to his burst on jump back landing, because your burst or your consistent burst is dash plus melee. The shurikens are a bonus, right? But dash plus melee is already almost 100 damage, so like roughly a third, a little bit more of his squishes HP. That's what the Winston, a tank, is doing by jumping on you, right? So if possible, avoiding that is very, very important. Buys you so much time. And gives the Winston so much less value. We're gonna see how long we stay out of the fight just because we got landed on here. Like, if we don't get landed on here, we have over 100 HP, so we can still peek main and spam the Winston while maybe rotating to the mag and then come back and then shoot and shoot and shoot, right? Or we can dash here and then we can poke and then look for a late rotate into the backline to follow up on the ram or something like that, right? But because we made the jump too easy, we're completely zoned out of the fight. And the Winston didn't even have to make an inconvenient jump or anything like that. He just got to zap other people afterwards. Now is a good moment to get up close because you have the Wu Yang pockets. So the trade is completely fine for you, right? And it's not in a moment where those resources need to be spent elsewhere either. It's just you. All healing resources can go onto you. And you just bully the Winston because your team needs the positioning, right? That's when you can get close. And this is the danger that I talked about, right? If you close the gap on the Winston, you dash out, he jumps in. In this case you have Wu Yang healing, which makes it fine. But still, it's a... I'm using this not to talk badly about this choice, just to showcase what I meant. And yeah, your team just doesn't organize a proper push. Which is unfortunate. But yeah, since the question was about Winston, I'm gonna focus on the Winston stuff. I don't really care too much about the rest, unless people in chat or whatever have questions. Specific question that you would like me to go over. I don't hate this idea. Wait. Do we have perk? We should have perk. Why does it not show? That's weird. I haven't... Am I crazy or did the game not show the text of like this perk equipped? Because it's not showing on the bottom right like which perk is equipped. Oh yeah, there you go, that's why. We don't have lifesteal yet. With lifesteal I don't mind that blade to get a dash reset, chase the Kiriko. And there's a Zerper, so we're gonna be skipping this part. Nice, bully the Kiriko out. This is not against Winston, I'm gonna skim over it to see if there's anything interesting. There's a good rollout. A very quick comment here. There is absolutely no reason to rush your shots. They do not know that you're coming here. Take your time. Imagine if you actually landed those 3 shots, right? Stay alive.
Hey, it's Kiriko.
Nice. They're gonna probably stay first class. Very quick comment about Blade here. You don't commit dash like this. 1, it's not guaranteeing a kill. 2, it's not chasing. This is silver. But most importantly, even if the intention is to confirm a kill or just land more damage at the dash, right? Which I'm pretty sure the intention was here. The swing that you want to animation cancel is the second one, not the first. After the blade soft rework, let's call it, on season 9, where it swings faster, the time between first and second swing is so fast that putting your dash in between those is actually harmful for your DPS. It's better to do swing, swing, dash rather than swing, dash, swing. So your combos should be swing, swing, dash, swing, swing, rather than swing, dash, swing, swing, and then wait, and then swing, swing, right? You should think about your combos as groups of 2 swings, and then afterwards, right, between the combos is when you can do things like dash, deflect, or whatever. You might sometimes need to deflect between your swings here, right? But still, in terms of just like raw DPS, the dash should be after your even swings, not your odd swings. Now, if you want to use your dash as a juke, right, go through someone, force a 180 response, right, to stay alive, yes, you do that whenever you feel like it. But in this case, you kind of really need the dash to be able to follow Venture because of drill dash. I wouldn't even say that Venture is that good of a target because they can just dig underground, right? And then just escape you for 4 seconds. But even then, let's say that you're going for the Kiriko or the Mercy or the Soldier, right? All of those have mobility cooldown that you need to save the dash to chase after. So I would be mindful of your early dash usage. Nice.
Show me what you're made of.
The payload has reached the checkpoint.
We're not gonna swap back to Winston this round.
I've got you in my sights. We got him where we want him.
This is a good flank. A little bit late on the cage follow-up, but it's fine.
How's it going?
Yeah, this round is not terribly exciting to review. They just have just fast respawns. Maybe now? This up Reaper? No, it's the Genji. This is a good angle.
Let the Kitsune guide you.
And now they just forget to fix it. So yeah. The stuff that I would really have to say about this fight, I mean, other than the orb deflect that you missed here, it's that like, I mean, from here you could maybe hold this angle and shoot from here rather than from main because it's less likely for you to take damage. But other than that, like the range that you're playing at is fine. Because it makes it really hard for characters like Winston, for characters like Venture, for characters like Moira to actually deal damage to you. And your damage doesn't drop that much. But in the meantime, their damage drops a ton. And your maintenance, right? How much it costs your team to keep you up drops tremendously. Now that you're not taking damage from half the team, right? And this is also why I kind of really like this angle. Because this means that the Soldier can't hit you either, or the Kiriko, unless they take an angle like this, you know? At which point you can duel them. So then you're kind of using Genji less as a close range duelist, and more so as kind of like a tracer, where it's a character that is relatively self-sufficient, can take the angles that they want, and just plays to wear down the opponent, essentially, right? This is part of Genji's flexibility. You don't have to be one-dimensional about fighting people up close every single time. If you try too hard to do so, especially in the current state of balance, where a lot of characters are just gonna out-duel you at your best range, either because they have a little bit of support or something else, like your secondary fires not landing as much damage as they should, right? being flexible and understanding when to play which of your ranges, which you have more than one of, right, is very important, right? You're still gonna be very deadly up close, you just need to know when to get up close, right? And right now, this is not a moment where anyone is really all that vulnerable for up close engagements. The only exception really would be like if you're using a corner like this or this, waiting for someone to push through the door, and then you just duel them up close. Because at that point, your character just beats more, beats soldier, right, etc. Just clean up.
Round
Extra rounds, you start on Genji, they're on Winston. Right, there's fighting happening early, which is unusual. Yeah, Winston just burns his jump, you burn your dash, this is good, right? And this is what I meant with like the forcing awkward jumps. Winston's will often tunnel on you, and now this Winston is at a very awkward spot where your team can easily come here and spam him out. And then after he jumps, he's still gonna be in LOS of your team to be shot, so you're gonna gain a ton of space. And he's not really gaining much in return because of the tunnel visioning, right? It's exactly the same as the Genji tunnel visioning for close range all the time, right? Yes, close range is good, but not always, right? Yes, Winston engaging on Genji is good, but not all the time, right? You need to be mindful about the circumstances, right? And now the Winston fed because he's overly focusing on you, right? And you're playing at a range that's essentially baiting him in, quote unquote.
30 seconds.
We're on our way to payday. Said he fixed the engine. Repair guys are moron.
And yeah, now that the Winston already spent jump, you can use your dash more freely. So you can drop in his face, shoot, dash, and he can't really retaliate. Not the best use of your cooldown resources by any means, but much better than if you get up close, he jumps, or you dash out and then he jumps into you, right? And you have no choice. Because you have a choice here to take the fight. Or avoid the fight if you don't want to. And after you dodge the Winston, you just get a lot of time in the fight fighting character that you're much more suited to.
Round
Untouchable.
red.
We're Genji in defense too, which is nice. Yeah. And here, again, because Winston jumped in and you have your dash still, you can choose, can I stay and fight or should I back up with dash and not take the trade? In this case, this Winston is feeding. So yes, you stay and fight. Yep, you dodge the Winston.
I am restored.
A little bit careful with that. Your team is kind of choosing to fight a little bit too early, which is making things a little bit awkward, but on your end you have been mostly doing fine. Much better spacing overall. Here you have pockets, so you not only can, but you should fight them. Team C9, which is unfortunate. We spend all of their ults after they already kept, which is a shame. Plus we get a spawn hold out of this. We need to be very careful with this spacing.
I am repaired.
Here we cannot really escape them. The Winston... I really thought the Winston was able to
10 seconds.
catch up to you. Need to be very careful of these dashes. You already earned your close range. Wait 0.2 seconds and you're on the ground. This dash does absolutely nothing except remove your ability to disengage. Being shot at by soldier, where's my dash to run? Doesn't exist, right? The Winston chases don't have dash. You just get bailed by the enemy team not noticing that you turbo fed using dash there. Okay, you just use dash 1v5 with nobody being low to kill and no good escape path. But yeah, I'm not too worried about her being in this fight. Okay. Hopefully that covers the Winston matchup in a satisfactory manner. Does anyone in chat have any questions? Also, let me go over to Discord. Review today's stream. Let me check if anyone answered here on the chat. Doesn't seem like it. So, I need an answer here for a different question. Do we want to do the second VOD review, the second and last VOD review of the stream now, or do we want to discuss Genji's balance state? Because we're gonna be doing both. New mouse software. What did you get? Because I have a lot of thoughts about Genji specifically, and also a lot of characters in relation to Genji. The main one that I have thoughts about is Venture, less so Vendetta because it's like a new hero. I don't know to what extent I should talk about stuff because I don't know what belongs on this video and what belongs on another one. Because I have some thoughts about like perk power creep and special perks that are breaking character design, like Cassidy just gaining range that he shouldn't have through perks, ignoring the whole fact that they're moving his identity away from the close range brawler, right, by giving him more range and less bulk. But yeah. Just hovering over the heroes real quick and trying to figure out which ones are the most important for me to draw comparisons to. I guess they're gonna come naturally based on how the conversations go. Actually, I'm just mainly curious about what chat wants to do now. Because we have enough people now that we can start discussing the balance if we want. I guess a good starting point would be just having people quickly type out how their experiences this seasons have been. I'm sure it's gonna differ depending on the rank. So maybe adding the rank would be useful. Just like, let's say that the message template is rank and then the message, right? So, for example, Grandmaster Genji has been feeling weak because XYZ, you know? This kind of template for messages. Hopefully this is big enough for people to see. I don't know if I can like change the size of the font on Notepad. Okay. here. Yeah, this works. That's nice. And yeah, it shows the percentage at the bottom, so I don't have to worry about trying to put it on default size and not knowing what it is anymore. What are you doing on the stream right now? That's what I'm trying to poll the community to know, because I could do the second and last VOD review here before we dive into the balance, or you can just dive into the balance immediately. Because I have a lot of thoughts about Genji's current balance state. It's partly because of his own kit and how some things in his kit need to be addressed. Part of it is because of just like other characters' existence in the meta and their power level, right? One of the main characters I want to draw comparisons to is Venture. What else? Let me check my notes here. Oh yeah, there are some things that I have some strong opinions on that I don't know if they belong in this stuff, but stuff like Kiriko, more importantly, strafing pattern and hitbox size being incredibly awkward. I guess so. I guess this belongs. The main reason why I think that this belongs is because of the secondary fire nerf. So let me go back to OBS so I can see chat. And let me go here. We can start from here. And for those that want to quickly state their opinion on how their season experience has been, this is kind of like the format that I want, right? So state your opinions on the season. Genji POV with this template. Rank opinion. Okay. And leave this on the screen a little bit and then go from there. But I guess I should start by saying that I agree with Genji losing some of his secondary fire size. Because, for example, at this range, and by the way, yes, at this range, even after the nerf, I'm still landing a double hit from this range. I don't think I can land a double hit from this range. Let's check. Wait, was that a double hit? That might have been a double hit, actually. Yeah, I think I found the spot. I am landing double hits. I think I might be moving my mouse slightly. Yeah. Double hits at this range, by the way, after the nerf to his projectile size. So this is what I mean, right? Anna has a fairly small hitbox, right? I don't think that she has a particularly good strafe, but I don't think she has a particularly terrible strafe, right? But if we consider that I am at this range, I don't know what this range is. I think that this is 6 meters? 6-7 meters, maybe? I think. Actually, I can ping. Yeah. Oh wow, 8 meters. Yeah, it's saying 8 meters, by the way. Wow. I guess my calculations kind of suck, huh? But 8 meters. This is not the kind of range that you would expect Genji to be landing double shurikens against with secondary fire against a small hitbox, right? It really doesn't feel like he should, and yet he still can. Now, it was incredibly precise, yes, but my point is that before the nerf, it was way too easy for you to just do this, right? And not really have to aim and just accidentally land kills on a very fast time to kill. Whenever people talk to me about, oh, how after Season 9 Genji was so weak and whatnot, bro. Or, more importantly, did Genji lost kill threats on Season 9, I lose my mind. Because Season 9, because of the increase in projectile size, made Genji so much more deadly because basically every shot was landing one more shuriken. The HP increase was equivalent to one shuriken, but every shot would land one extra shuriken. So your time to kill on basically every kill would either be the same or be faster after Season 9. Despite the HP increase. That's the funny part about it. Right? Let me just get these out of the
I
way.
will make use of this.
Double
You will not find the answer you seek.
Okay.
major pack
Untouchable.
unlocked.
Check the M's, sure. You said the funny numbers? Please don't tell me that it's the 6-7. I am so tired of that. I hear people meme about it all the time. I do not know or want to know what the meme is. But yeah. But yes. Let me check the messages. Yeah, Ash and Zarya being meta for so long has been super annoying, at least in Plot Gold. Really wish they would do something about those two. Champ, Genji has been hard playing to Vendetta, armor and block equals nightmare. Yeah, Felch, I just permaban Vendetta. I have basically every game I don't see Vendetta, and the games that I see it's just brain dead because the Vendetta is just inting with all cooldowns and getting away with it, which is fun. Silver Gold, Genji's gonna do weaker than I feel he actually is, and is therefore often abandoned by supports, leading to losing more engagements. Demon, I think the Genji is pretty decent, although not the best has been. Find a nerf a buff in certain situations, can now crit people who are right above you before projectiles were too big. But yes. Let me do this, yeah. So, we just saw how it is important to nerf Genji's secondary fire, right? That's, I think, a very important thing to address when we're talking about Genji's balance state, because his and let me write some stuff. I'm pretty sure that his win rate is currently like 52% in the low ranks. I don't remember when exactly it starts changing. I do believe this is in bronze. I don't remember if this is from bronze to diamond or something, but his win rate in champ is 46%. So here is just like champ and this is like bronze, right? So these are kind of his win rates. So it's not like Genji purely sucks, and I'm pretty sure that across all ranks his win rate is still like 52, maybe 51%, something like that. So like his overall win rate is positive, but his current state at the highest ranks is kind of depressing. Because a character like him should not be at this win rate in high ranks because people consider him to be a high skill character, right? So shouldn't he be good or better in high ranks than he's at lower ranks? So why is his win rate the opposite of what the character perceived skill curve is, you know? And it's not just that, because if we consider characters close to Genji, right? Something like Venture, right? Someone like Venture has
Let's make history.
less skill, or less of a skill curve like Genji has, right? You'd consider Venture to be kind of like the opposite of Genji, so that's probably easier to pick up. Although I would argue on that, I think Venture is deceptively hard to pick up, but like scales very poorly with skill. So you'd kind of expect Genji to be sort of like this, and Venture to be sort of like this. But in truth, right, what ends up happening is that something like this is Genji, and something like this is Venture. Even though we already showed what the graphs should be like, right? Or at least the graphs that we would expect for these characters, right? So this is weird. And this is especially weird because if we're talking about, oh, hit skins are getting buffed and other meta changes are pushing Genji out of the meta, or he has more competition on the DPS roster, so now his win rate is gonna drop, less so because of his own personal balance, why wouldn't other characters that are similar in identity also drop? You know? So as much as there is, for sure, meta-related stuff that is making Genji go down, right? This absolutely is partly due to meta. I wouldn't even say that the meta was particularly good for Genji like a season or two ago. I don't remember exactly the characters, but I remember at least like a season ago we were seeing a lot of Zarya, and I just kind of didn't really care. And I was just fine on Genji, and I'm pretty sure his win rate is just fine at the high end. It's just this season's particular, and I'm pretty sure it's because of the projectile size. And what has dawned on me is that a lot of it is not necessarily because of the projectile size on their own, because against certain characters, and let me pick one that's gonna make this really easy, against certain characters, what distance is this? Let's put the same 80 meters, right? Landing damage is much easier than others. Right now I'm not landing the double headshot perfectly. But one of the big things is that you can see from, like, let's say Cassidy's silhouette is that it's a lot bigger. I need to do, yeah, there you go. Here's the double headshot. And it's a fairly easy one too.
Until next time.
Because Cassidy is has a broader hitbox. Let's pick Torb. Torb also has a rather broad hitbox. We can almost land triple shurikens at this range, despite the projectile nerf. So what I'm trying to get at is that the projectile nerf is important, but it's not in a vacuum. One of the most important things about Genji's consistency and damage, right? And why one of the things that I heard complaints from the most was more players complaining that Genji hit like a truck without really having to aim, right? And it's true, Genji would demolish more up close because he could just broadly spam in her general direction with M2 and she would just die. But if compare more to, let's say, Kiriko, and you put yourself at a little bit of a range,
A worthy upgrade. Enemy here.
you already have a lot of trouble landing double damage. By the way, I am landing 0 damage here.
I see.
This is the same range apparently, the same 8 meters. But it's now either one shuriken or a complete miss, instead of being able to do this little trick of aiming a little bit off center to land 2. And if you add together, I'm not going to be able to show this here because I don't have a code ready for it, Kiriko's strafe pattern. Kiriko's strafe is broken. She's incredibly good at AD spamming. Incredibly good. There is a reason why BAP players and Kiriko players and Ilaria players, they make these really erratic strafes that seem like they should be really bad because you should just be able to aim down mid and just hit, and then they evade 90% of shots. The strafes of the character combined with their hitbox is kind of broken. In Vap's case, his hitbox is fairly big, but his strafe is still very good, which makes him dodge more shots, and he honestly feels like he deserves to. Especially for putting his little thought into his strafing, but he's not mind gaming or anything like that. He's just like randomly strafing within a very short radius, right? So what I think needs to be addressed for Genji is not mostly his own kit. What I think needs to be addressed for Genji is Kiriko hitbox and Delaria hitbox and Kiriko strafing and Delaria strafing. That kind of stuff. Because as we just saw, Genji still lands good damage at ranges where he really doesn't deserve to land good damage. Into some even decently small hitboxes. It's not Genji's shurikens and their size that's a problem. And in fact, if we just consider this and keep the weird distribution of hitbox sizes where some characters, right, have like minuscule hitbox and some characters like Torb have gigantic hitboxes, then we either are at a point where we land decent damage against Kiriko and absolutely destroy Torb, or we are at a point where we land decent damage against Torb and cannot win a single duel against Kiriko. You know? So until we address the discrepancies in hitboxes, and especially the discrepancies in strafing, and I believe that strafing would be something that's much easier for the devs to address than hitboxes, because hitboxes probably require model tweaks, because otherwise like the area that you can hit the character starts to not match the visual of the character, right? You cannot have Kiriko be getting shot here because this does not match her silhouette, right? You kind of need Kiriko to be hit roughly around this, right? You know? Cannot be this. You cannot land any shot. Like if you shoot here, you should not land damage, right? So this to me is one of the biggest things. And now that I've said all of this, I want to hear everyone's opinion, whether they agree, disagree, have something to add about this, because this is something that I've been thinking for a while as to why I felt so conflicted about Genji's balanced state, liking the nerf because it was too easy, but at the same time, despite it being too easy, it still felt hard against some characters, right? And now Genji still feels good against some characters despite the win rates, right? So Genji can feel good in a lot of matches, and he'll still be at a 46% win rate in GM/champ, right? No. Smurfing Genji's carrying his win rates doesn't really happen because Genji is too popular. If there is enough fun incentive, if you would argue that there are enough players that smurf on a character to potentially carry his win rates, you're saying that the character is popular enough that there are enough players that are just complete newbies that are picking up the character to counterbalance that too. You would only be able to find that on very specific trends, maybe of like a content creator that is incentivizing a lot of people to go and smurf to change a character's win rate or something like that, or a creator that's no lifing a character with low pick rate. So let's say Sim has a 1% pick rate and there is a champion Sim that spams accounts and climbs from bronze to GM every single day on a new account. That would skew the win rate. But on a character that has the pick rate of Genji, no. Smurfs and whatnot are not going to be the cause of Genji having a 52% win rate in bronze. And this is where another one of the ideas that I have about this video come in, which is about Genji's deceptive skill curve, right? Let me just quickly catch on to chat and see if they talked about the hitbox size, yeah. But in terms of like the skill, we expect Genji's skill floor to be relatively high, right? And then his skill ceiling to be fairly high. But you know why bronze players struggle so hard against Genji? And just general low rank players, right? Doesn't have to be just bronze, but I'm gonna be using bronze as just like the catch-all phrase, essentially. Why does Genji perform well in low ranks? What is in his kit that gives him more reward than he should have for the effort put in? Deflect, yes. What's the other one? There are two. Wait. Oh yeah, Dushin Gamer. This point, I agree partially. This is something that there is a comment on Slay the Spire that I read recently that I think is fairly interesting to bring over to Overwatch. So if you think about it, in Slay the Spire, there are some cards that are barely ever used because they kind of suck compared to others, but they are still used. Basically every card in Slay the Spire, no matter how niche, has a place where they are strong, and they will be picked. The devs are not trying to force all cards to be equal pick rate, equal win rate, or anything like that. What the devs intend to do with the balance of Slay the Spire is for every card to have a place. As long as the card feels strong where they should feel strong, no matter how niche it is, the balance of the game is good. This is another point I was trying to make, or that I was going to talk about later. If you think about a character like Roadhog, you shouldn't push Roadhog to have a 50% win rate or above on all maps, on all ranks. If you think a character like Sigma, Sigma should not have a 54% win rate. He should have a probably negative win rate on most maps and a positive win rate on Circuit Royale. And maybe some others, like maybe Havana or something. I'm not gonna list the exact ones, I just want to paint a general picture of the kind of stuff that we should be looking for. Balance does not necessarily, 50% balance is not necessarily balance, right? Because balance is not just purely balance, it's also for the fun of the game. But also, even if 50% balance was good and enjoyable and what we should be aiming for, where was I going for this? It completely disregards all of the stuff about niches, right? Having a character only be pickable or only be good on specific situations is good for the game. It's something that we should be aiming for. A character that is punching out of their niche is completely stupid. If, for example, we think about, let's say, Ashe. If Ashe suddenly got a buff to her HP to the point where she has 500, let's say, would she be better or worse than Genji up close? Who would be better? 350 HP Genji or 500 HP Ashe in close range duels? I don't really need an answer for that, do I? And so the problem is that if we did that, right? Where we tried to make Ashe as good as Genji up close or something like that, right? When she is already better than him at long range or something, or tried to make Genji as good as Ashe at long range, then we're suddenly destroying the character identities and we're destroying other characters, not just the one that we're currently addressing. So Ashe getting range creeped basically destroys Widowmaker. Because what's the point of picking Widowmaker when you can pick Widowmaker but better? What's the point of picking Genji when you can pick Genji but better? Genji for less effort. Right? It's completely fine for Venture to exist and be a lower resource version of Genji. It's not okay for Venture to, when you have the supports to pocket Genji, to still be better than Genji, because then there is no point in playing Genji at all. And your niche character has removed the niche of another one and has gone out of their niche. They're punching out of their niche. Sigma is currently punching out of his niche. D.Va is punching out of her niche. Ashe is punching out of her niche. I would argue Venture is pushing out of their niche. Cass is punching out of his niche. And so on and so forth. Long range poke than Venture? In theory, yes. But at the same time,
Guided by the wind.
while yes, this is not long range, this is where a lot of the times Genji would be shooting at.
Gone, but not forgotten.
And Venture is just doing this, but easier and arguably better. Because this fire rate is incredibly stupid. This win rate isn't, or this fire rate is incredibly stupid. It's so much raw damage for an incredibly forgiving weapon. Does not need to headshot. Has splash damage. Has an incredibly big hitbox. I think I maybe have repeated that.
Double kill.
So while yes, in theory, Genji has better poke than Venture, during a lot of situations in actual matches, it doesn't feel like that. That's the funny part. But yeah. Let's quickly go back to the whole skill floor thing. So, one of the reasons why this skill floor is not actually as high as we think, and maybe it's around here. We already talked about deflect, right? Deflect. What's the other one? It is intended, I just went on a tangent. Dash? No. We're thinking about what about Genji's kit gets a disproportionate amount of reward for the effort put in. So in low ranks, you stand main, you press E, and then you get a bazillion value from deflect. Walk climb? Almost. Not exactly. It is related to his passive mobility. Double jump, yes. Double jump. You click the funny jump button and then your opponents can't hit you. This is why he has a 52% win rate in the low ranks. Even after all the nerfs. Yeah. Because Genji is not as hard as people think. Genji is not here in bronze. Genji is here. You know? That's it. You press deflect main, you spam double jump, and then you get a ton of value. Yeah. More counters this brain dead Genji playstyle. In a way, as much as Genji players complain about Moira being low skill, a lot of what Genji players do in lower ranks is low skill. So in a way, Genji is not a high skill character, especially not if you consider that his win rate goes down the further up the rank. Because not only is he deceivingly easy for bronze, he is also not scaling as people think that he should at higher ranks, which should indicate that his ceiling is also potentially a problem. Now, I would argue against saying that Genji is not a high skill ceiling character, because his win rate is low currently in high ranks. I would argue that his floor is much lower than people think, because of those points that we just made. But what's the reason why Genji has a 46% win rate in champ right now? What is it? And I know a lot of different people are gonna have different opinions on this, which is the whole point of me doing this stream and asking the community. Now we're going to play Genji? Yeah, that would be mostly, yes. That would be mostly it. Why play Genji when you can play Venture? Why play Genji when you can play Vendetta? Why play Genji when you can play Bastion? See, here's the thing. We don't have to just compare Genji to other flex DPS. If a character has become Thanos thanks to balance, a player can go out of their niche and still perform. And this is something that we have been talking a lot about. Punching out of a niche is bad. Be it a character punching out of their niche and overcoming another one, or a player being able to go out of their playing niche, their skill niche, and still perform. If a flex DPS player is swapping to hit scan and performing equal or better in hit scan, either the role is overpowered or that player is not actually a good flex DPS player. We're gonna ignore the case of that player not being good at flex DPS and just assume they are good at flex DPS for the sake of this argument, right? Just to make things easier, because that kind of like stuff you could argue the same thing about little everything else and it would never get anywhere, right? It would be a bad faith argument. So we're just gonna think about this situation of like Genji player goes into Bastion, right? Because Bastion is so strong right now, because it doesn't really have weaknesses, right? Just does a bazillion damage, has a bazillion stats, right? He just has too much stat. That's it. He just has too much stat. He's doing the low rank thing in high ranks because of how many stats he has, where not even the characters that scale very heavily with skill can overcome a Bastion just pressing buttons, right? So a lot of the times that I've struggled on my matches this season, it has not been against good players trying to play characters they are good at but are difficult. It has been against players that are worse than me by usually an entire rank that are just picking Bastion and Vendetta and Venture, right? Because these are characters that have like 55% to 53% win rate or something like that, or just generally characters that get a lot more value out of the skill that you put in. Meanwhile, Genji's curve, as we have just showcased, is not really all that good, right? So a lot of the struggle is, I guess, people being quote-unquote dishonest, being balance boosted. But I don't think that that's all there is to it. Yes, the whole context of the game, the meta, right? Other characters that can do your niche but better, right? Are gonna make you inevitably lose your win rate, right? Because whenever a Genji faces Venture, and Venture is just stronger, right? Then the Venture is gonna be favored, so that's gonna skew the win rate towards Venture and away from Genji. The hit scans and aim assist? Yeah. I would imagine so. But it's not just that though. I did talk at length about like the hitbox thing and how it's not just about Genji's shuriken size, but it's undeniable that when you nerf shuriken size, you nerf deflect cooldown, you nerf Genji ammo, you are making a lot of the knobs be worse, and so you're bringing the ceiling down. And with a lower ceiling, now this character scales with skill worse than other characters do. So either a character like Venture, let's say, overcomes Genji and now has a higher ceiling leading to a better win rate, or now Genji's ceiling being lower and his effort to reward ratio being weaker, to the point where you need to invest hundreds of hours on him while you just need to invest 10 hours on them, right? To do the same, if not more, right? Now suddenly why play Genji? And then you have the same situation. So yes, Genji's balanced state does cause this. Meta also. There are a lot of things that are very nuanced about this, which is why I've been spending so much time lately thinking, as much as I'm trying to just like, as much as I feel bad about it, to not have even started the script really on this. But it's because there are so many moving pieces that I really want to understand the full puzzle before I even start writing about this, because I don't want to make mistakes here. I want to feel confident that I understand everything that I need to talk about, otherwise I'm just gonna ignore a crucial part of the puzzle and then suddenly the whole thing falls apart, and then my arguments are not only gonna be ignored, but they're also gonna be bad, right? So yeah, I'm gonna have to rewatch my own stream here. One of the reasons why I did this is because I wanted to just kind of be able to go on rambles with chat's help and chat's opinions to guide it and provide other ideas and stuff without having to worry about writing notes myself, because the moment that I start writing notes, I'll start to try to develop them and I'll forget the other points, and then yeah, it's a lot of trouble. So I'll ignore the idea that I had about just writing some notes and then just watch the stream back and then write the notes with everything already that I want to talk about in the video already kind of sketched out, let's call it. Okay. Is there anything that I have either ignored from chat or the chat would like me to address or comment on or something? It's been really hard to fight on Genji's best range lately? Yes. Yes. I have felt that, and that's what has pushed me to think about Genji a little bit differently and not tunnel vision so much on Genji's good range. And also use his bad range better and knowing when it is actually good to use it. I've been outdueled by a lot of heroes, yep, that is literally the exact same feeling that I've had. And it's good to be hearing that. Is very nice. I forgot the word for it. It's not that, I mean, vindicated is not exactly the word, but I guess it explains the sentiment, right? It's like, I'm not alone in this, right? It's not just me, it's like, and like the way that I'm seeing is like, it's not, oh, I fell off or something like that. It's like, it's something that is happening to other people. So yeah, I tried to duel an Ashe, I tried to duel a Cassidy, I tried to duel, I don't know, a Sojourn, I tried to duel Just trying to pick characters that I often face. Adventure. I try to do heck, I try to do like Juno. You know? Other times I would even have an advantage going into them. And it would just feel like even if I play well, I often lose to the point where I lose confidence in even taking the duel. And I feel like I can't even take duels with the character anymore. I need to avoid taking any duels. Because the moment that I take a duel, I just lose. Which should not be the case of this character. Because this character should be very good at duels. So why does he feel like he sucks at duels? So it's weird. Good job. Not all of the characters that I pointed out have hitbox problems. Ashe has a massive head hitbox. Really easy for you to farm her on Genji.
Enemy here.
It's funny that I say that, but then I have trouble hitting the actual like big damage from the same range that I was using, right? The 8 meters. But whenever I'm dueling on Ashe, it feels like this is one of, if not the most consistent DPS to face that you can actually land triple headshots on. If you try to just like duel another DPS and you try to land the triple headshot, it feels like you can't really. Or you miss a triple headshot and you land a double instead of just a single. No? Like Ashe head hitbox is so massive. You know? And in the case of like dueling Ashe, Genji obviously still has advantage. Ashe has tools in the form of the dynamite, especially of the perk that doesn't require you to shoot it, right? But the main thing that annoys me about Ashe, and maybe this is just more of a personal grievance, but why can we shoot so many of these? Why is this fire rate so fast? Does it show here? It doesn't, right? Yeah. I don't think this says the fire rate, does it? Unless I'm missing something here. And the level is not here. Because I'm just talking about the primary. Yeah, I don't see it. So I guess I need to do something like this. And so yeah, like 12 shots in like a little bit more than 3 seconds.
I burn with purpose.
It's like... It's the green thing top left. No, this is move speed. Talking about the fire rate of the gun. Because I swear, a lot of duels I feel like I lose by like 0.1 seconds. Right, 100 milliseconds. Because I go in, I hit my shots, and I'm waiting to shoot again. And this Ashe shoots 5 times. And I'm still waiting for my second one. You know? And it's supposed to be her weak weapon against my strong weapon, and my strong weapon is slow as fuck. And her weak weapon is incredibly fast and it hurts a ton. You know? So maybe this is just a little bit of personal grievance. And I don't think that arguing that, okay, nerf every character, right, is correct. I don't think that, oh, nerf Ashe fire rate, nerf cast fire rate, nerf Soj this, nerf Venture that, right? And I do think that some of these things needs to be addressed. I think Venture fire rate is ridiculous. Something needs to be addressed about Venture. Because Venture has too rewarding. And this is something that I haven't talked to this stream, so I'll go into it soon. But I think that there's an easier way to handle this again. If, in this case, a lot of things can be addressed by a single change, let's do the single change, right? If everyone else feels too fast for Genji, increase Genji's fire rate. The reason why we cannot address Genji's projectile size directly is because a lot of characters have hitboxes that are wildly different and strafe patterns. So against some characters, Genji projectile size feels incredible, and some it feels like he's not even shooting anything.
Two.
3.9 shots per second is kind of crazy. Yeah. So I do think that Genji deserves a fire rate buff. I don't think it says here. I think Genji's current fire rate on his secondary fire is something like once every 0.75 seconds. So how much would that be? 1.33 shots per second or something? Might be wrong here, but I think that's the math. Can you check that, Nautilus? I think it is roughly there. I remember there was a time where I believe Genji got buffed to like one shot every, I think, 0.68. And it was a little bit of a machine gun. Genji's secondary fire, right. Let me see. Yeah, I'll address that in a second, Spencer. So yeah, I do think that you need to be careful not giving Genji too much fire rate, right? Because then he just insta wins a lot of duels just by outstatting people close range, right? But at the same time, right now, it just feels like Genji shoots so slowly that you could have the jump on people and they will just be able to just like outstat you, even on situation that they shouldn't be able to beat you without a lot of skill or a big misplay on their part. You know, because like I'll shoot once and the caster is shooting 2-3 times, the Ashe is shooting 5, and things like that. You know. So I think that in terms of Genji specific changes, and this is something that I'll address eventually later, so remind me of that. But in terms of Genji specific changes, his HP shouldn't be changed. Too much HP is obviously just boring, right? We already know how that feels against Bastion, against Reaper, against Mei and whatnot. I just hate stat balance. Stat balance is useful to an extent, but just purely balancing off or just getting lazy and balancing off stats is just boring. Because, and we even see it with Vendetta, right? Vendetta often wins not because of skill, but just because you do not have enough damage. A lot of characters do simply lose to Vendetta because they do not have enough damage. It doesn't even feel like a skill matchup anymore. I cannot really win duels against Vendetta, not because I am not a better player, but it's because it's such a skilled matchup that I literally get bored just thinking about having to shoot her, that I don't even bother aiming. That's the problem. So let me actually grab something and show. Genji? Where is it? Yes, it's this. Wait, this is not it. Shoot. Ah. Where is it? I think it's this folder. Yes. It's this. Hello, can you please? Yeah, there you go. So are you all seeing this? Just quickly checking. Can you all see this graph? Mm-hmm. In this case... Wait, where's my... Oh, I see the problem. Yeah, there you go. Now I can draw. Okay. So what was I thinking? So in this case of like Vendetta, yes, in theory, like the challenge is too high for your skill, so you should land here. But the funny part is that when fighting Vendetta, I kind of land here. Kind of like, basically what it ends up making me feel is that all the skill that I've spent is not worth it. So rather than feeling anxious about a duel because to win it I need to have, like, the challenge is too much for my skill, it just goes beyond the graph essentially and kind of loops back around to the point where it's such a difficult challenge that it basically feels impossible. So it makes it feel like it's not worth putting in the effort. So I guess that this is not like a perfect graph to showcase this because it kind of breaks the graph here that I'm showcasing. But it kind of makes me end up at the boredom area where I cannot really put in any effort. But it's not because my skill is higher than the challenge. Or I mean maybe it kind of is. Because my skill is higher than the challenge. It's just that the challenge is it should be like, I am such an infinitely better player than data players. It's just that they are just using a broken, completely busted character with like 500 effective HP that moves at the speed of light and just has infinite DPS, you know? Yeah. Not a perfect analogy here. But hopefully you get what I mean, right? Where I cannot... Yeah. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that there is a certain point in difficulty scaling where difficulty plummets. It stops being difficult because it goes from doable to bullshit. That's essentially it. Have you ever played a game that has felt like this? Have you ever tried to do, let's say, a challenge run of any game, and you cranked up the difficulty settings to the point where it feels completely impossible, and therefore difficulty becomes null? Difficulty only makes sense if you can kind of beat it, you know? The moment that it becomes too difficult to do, difficulty loses meaning, essentially. But it's doable, Arya. It is very doable. That I think, at least. We should be able to do it. Anyway. I'm sure everyone has had experiences like these, or can think of things like these, right? Like, if you have a game, you could say something like, I guess this is not the best example, but think about, let's say, Overwatch, and you're a bronze player, and you're trying to 1v5 a champion team. Is that difficult, or is that impossible and bullshit? You know? Because let me tell you, while it is quote-unquote theoretically possible that the bronze player maybe eventually at some point, right, if we were to run infinite simulations or had infinite practice time for the bronze or whatever we wanted to create, that they could theoretically do it. Difficulty lost meaning a long time ago, right? We could have stopped at golds and it would still feel completely impossible. right? So difficulty loses meaning essentially. And this is kind of how I feel about playing Genji into Vendetta or something like that. My stats are just so terrible compared to hers that I cannot focus because difficulty has lost meaning, right? And that's why I kind of loop back on that graph into the boredom despite the challenge being incredibly high for the skill level in theory, right? Like it exceeding my skill level. Because difficulty lost meaning, so now the challenge is not even above my skill. It's impossible to measure the skill. Therefore, it's infinitely difficult and not difficult at all at the same time. Because it's not doable. But yeah. Where were we before? I think one thing I was thinking about is in terms of like what balance knobs Genji has to tweak. I don't think that there's really much that can be done to address Genji's low skill floor and low ranks because there are very few ways to address deflect. There are oh, thanks for the gift sub. Arya. What was I thinking? Oh yeah. Because increasing the cooldowns, we already know Q Spyro Rant is an awful way to balance. Making deflect 20 seconds would not reduce the effectiveness it has in bronze games when you stand main and you press the button. It would still be obnoxious. Double jump, maybe you could add a cooldown, but even then I think that like you run the risk of like clunkifying Genji more than addressing his balance, at which points it's not worth it, right? And besides, it's not like Genji has like a 55% or above win rate, right? It has 52 right now on bronze. So while those things are annoying, they're the least of our concerns. Especially because Genji is not that awful to play against. Those things do get more reward for the effort that you put in, but they're not Roadhog Hook. They are not Venture being uninteractable when digging and then one-shotting you, right? With very little skill involved. You at least know that the Genji has put in a certain level of effort into aiming, and it doesn't feel as cheap to play into him, right? Even though those like double jump spam and deflect the low ranks are somewhat cheap, right? So I currently can't really think of any way that can address those things. So those are not knobs that we can tweak for the low ranks. If we're trying to address Genji for the low ranks, I don't know where else you could look into the kit, but right now I'm not worried about thinking about this because he does not have an obnoxious win rate. He's a character that a lot of the community loves, is relatively fair to play against, so I don't really think that we need to spend time thinking about that. So, deflect should go down to 8 seconds, it just doesn't make sense for it to be higher. Maybe you can increase the cooldown if you pick meditation, if you think that's important, but in that case, I would argue just nerf meditation and then put Genji at 8 second deflect. That change was just stupid and I would like to see it reverted. It clunkifies the character more than it addresses balance. It's the same thing with like Ananate and whatever. And sure, while it changes win rate, it doesn't do so in a good way for the game. So yeah. But in terms of like the knobs that can be addressed to like help Genji in the higher ranks, right, which is where he's currently struggling with. And I don't really think that deflect can have much done. I think the deflect is a very well balanced cooldown. I don't think we need to address anything complicated like Genji's strafing pattern or hitbox or double jump or walk climb or anything like that. So you can ignore all of the whole mobility aspect of Genji. You can maybe think about dash or something. I will think about that later. In terms of damage, I have not fully thought that out, but Genji's damage should not go lower than 27. Because if it does, Genji does not one-shot with dash right-click melee anymore. I believe right now the combo does 252 damage. Because yeah, 27 is gonna be 135 plus 27, so that's 162. Dash and melee are 90, yeah, it's 252. So if you lower dash damage below 27 for whatever reason, unless you do some shenanigans with damage multipliers, right? Genji getting a bigger crit modifier or having lower shuriken damage, right? Which could potentially be a way of nerfing him in lower ranks and buffing him in higher ranks, right? Or something, I don't know. Or buffing dash damage or melee damage, which I feel like starts to make the game a lot of memorization about like, oh, this character does 50 damage in melee and this one does 45 and all of these do 40, right? I think that doing all of this is weird, so... And sure, while stating that Genji's damage should not go below 27 is stupid, I think that it is useful for us to narrow it down to a range that it can stay in. I do not think that Genji should go... Wait, is the equal sign above or below? I think it is below, right? I do not think that Genji damage should go to 30. The reason I don't believe it should go to 30 is because then... what's the breakpoints? Yeah, double melee, yeah. So dash melee does 90. Add in another melee, it does 130. So now you need 4 shuriken hits or 2 headshots. That's 2 little shurikens. Then it becomes a little bit too easy to kill, right? You dash in, you land 2 body shots or a single headshot melee. Then you land a single headshot melee again, and then the person is dead. That feels like 2 little efforts. So Genji damage shouldn't really go above 30. Or 30 or above. So this is basically where it lands at, where Genji can only be right, like 27, 28, or 29. Those are the numbers that we're kind of working with. And I have not done the math in this. Oh, by the way, before I move on, this is kind of where I would like a little bit of just to pause and just ask the community. Are you all keeping track of this? Do you all agree with this? Because this is just something that I've argued with myself for a while, and I'm kind of satisfied with this idea that these are the only numbers that we can really use for Genji damage, without complicating the whole situation on him and the whole balance state of everyone else, right? Where these are the only numbers that we should really play around with. That's just kind of where I want to like vibe check. Like, do you all agree, disagree? Like, does my logic make sense, etc.? Yeah. Ammo capacity, I'll get to that soon. I haven't done the math, but I don't believe that there is really any change between any of these, really. I would have to do the math to know for sure, but because Genji's damage range to like theoretically change is so narrow, and these changes theoretically do so little, I don't really think we need to think about damage. I could be wrong, and again, I do need to do the math on this to know. But I'm pretty sure that if you buff Genji's damage from 27 to 28, it literally does nothing. Sure, it theoretically makes your ult charge like 1% faster or something, I don't know. I guess that in here it would be like a 3% jump or something. Sure, maybe, whatever. Who cares? In terms of breakpoints, I don't think that there will be basically anything relevant. I think that the only relevant breakpoint comes at the 30 damage mark. So I will do the math later. But I think we can ignore damage. Especially because in general, Genji's issue is not so much damage as it is other things. His ability to stay in fights because of his HP, his cooldowns, his fire rate, etc. Right? I would much rather mess with his fire rate than his damage, essentially. I do think that his secondary fire needs to fire a little bit faster. Oh yeah, in terms of ammo, I think that the reason they nerfed it to 24 is because the projectile speed, right, is faster. This change was good. It made hitting problematic matchups like Echo, like Tracer, like Lucio, right? Any fast moving character or characters that are just harder to hit because of stupid hitboxes or something, easier. And poking from a decent range is a good part of Genji's kit, so it is important to have this speed. So yes, I really appreciate this. This is a good change. There are some people that disagree, but I'm sorry, I don't really regard your opinion with like a lot of thoughts, or I don't highly regard them. Maybe that's a little pretentious of me or egotistical or something, but I don't care. So if we're assuming that this is a good change, then this change makes sense. Because if you buff his projectile speed and you keep his ammo, suddenly Genji might farm a little bit too much ult charge. And sure, we could maybe argue about nerfing his ult charge, but then the problem is that ult charge and damage pressure are two different things, right? And while you could nerf the ult charge directly, you cannot nerf the... nerfing ult charge does not nerf the overall pressure that a character is dealing, right? You could have a character that needs 20k damage to farm an ult, right? Let's say that you suddenly buff Bastion's damage by 10, and then you like multiply it by 10, and then buff his ultimate by 10 times too, right? So now he still farms ult the same speed, except his opponents are gonna be dead the moment that they peek him. They're literally gonna be one shots by a single SMG shot or something like that, right? So those are two different things. So I like the ammo nerf rather than the ult charge nerf, because if you don't nerf his ammo, maybe his poke pressure is too high for a character like him that is not an Ashe, or, you know, a Sojourn or something, I don't know. So I like this nerf. You could maybe argue, this is something that I've been suggesting for a while, about 3 ammo being refunded on Dash. The reason why I like this, and the reason why I think that this is a fairly harmless change, is that, remember the chain of events. This was buffed, this was nerfed to keep his overall pressure on the poking phase the same. But this has an unintended consequence in that now his close range ammo is lower. And we shouldn't really add a second ammo counter for close range shots, I don't think. I know Baptiste has 2 ammos, right? One for healing and one for damage. I don't think you need to have a separate shuriken count for close range on Genji. So 30 shurikens was fine before, and it made a lot of his flow between close and long range feel great, right? You poke a little bit, then you dash in to close the gap, and then you shoot, and now sometimes this flow is a little bit awkward because you either poke too little or you poke too much, and now you have too little for close range, right? So this is why I think that this is a fairly harmless change, because it kind of finishes the sequence of events that kind of wasn't fully finished in this balance tweak that the devs did a while ago, where then he gains ammo back while not increasing his poke pressure. This is why I think that this is fairly harmless, and this is why I think that this could be fairly easily added, right? This should not have really any major balance consequences. This should just make the character feel a lot better to play. Does that make sense? This is not so much to address Genji's 46% win rate yet. This is more so about me just methodically going over the entirety of Genji's kits for everyone to understand what his current state is, what knobs can be changed, and what knobs should be changed. That's basically all I'm doing, right? And I'm doing all this work so that, and I'm gonna be doing all this work just more condensed when I make the video, to not only put everyone on the same page, but to make sure that like my opinion is not just seen as just like, oh, old man yells at cloud or something like that. Like, I'm tilted from a ranked queue, so I just suggest power creep to my character. No, I want to show that I've put a lot of thought into this, that I understand game design, that I understand that my ideas may not be the best, but at least I can suggest interesting enough ideas and balanceable enough tweaks that the devs can either springboard off of them, right, or just tweak the numbers, right, from those ideas, essentially. That's kind of the intention. Need to make sure that this comes off the right way, because feedback is good as long as it's good feedback. So I'm trying to make sure that this is good feedback, essentially. Especially because this is a complicated topic, right? So it's very easy to mess up, so I like being methodical about this. But yeah, one of the, I forgot to mention this before, but like a lot of the thing about like, oh, let's buff Genji to 28, let's buff Genji to 29, is that a lot of people say that because they want Genji more, they want more damage for Genji, but they haven't really fully thought out the things that they're suggesting. So even if they got it in game, it would literally do nothing, you know? So it's like, I understand wanting Genji to deal more damage, but I would urge you to spend more time thinking through ideas to see if those things are actually what you want or the way that you want them. First middle shuriken has more damage than the other two. That would overly complicate coding, most likely. That would overly complicate the game by like a large amount. In theory, I would love Genji to have 30 damage because it makes calculating things so much easier than with a broken number like 27, 28, 29, right? But yeah, like imagine having to calc Genji having 15 damage shurikens on the sides and a 40 damage shuriken in the middle. that would be hell. Quick melee swap Sansa reload 6 shurikens. I don't know. I feel like that kind of perk would be way too weak. So I don't really love using perks to do things that the base kit should do, and they're not matching the overall power level of other perks. That's a whole other thing, but like there are some perks that live on a completely different plane of power level. Like you have god tier perks that there are just like Thanos here, and you have like your baby little perks. Genji major perks sit here. Oh, I deal 25 more damage sometimes. Meanwhile, Cassidy has a 70 extra damage long range, easier to hit nuke every 6 seconds. And that's ignoring Roll being able to increase the number to like 2. You know? Like that is not even remotely balanced. And that's not the first example of this. Why does Anna get to double her damage with major perk? I know I'm exaggerating there, because she's not actually going to double her damage output, but she basically doubles her kill threats, which is ridiculous. Bastion had a 20% increase on his pressure, not purely kill threat, just pressure on recon form, which is his weakest, and this is ludicrous. Can you imagine a character getting a 100% kill threat increase? 100% kill threat increase, and lands a sleep with this perk, you are dead. You're literally dead. 250 HP. She one-shots you on sleeping without help. So yeah, perk is a whole other thing that I don't know if I want to address in this discussion and this video. Perks are interesting to an extent, but I really hate the implementation that they currently have and the way that the devs have addressed them, both in terms of like not addressing base kit issues or or creating issues with the base kit because the perks are problematic rather than addressing the perks. And the imbalance of perks, not just some perks being too strong in the minor perks and then majors being too weak or some being uninteresting and things like that, and then the inequality between some characters having Thanos perks and other having coughing babies and whatnot, right? It's a whole mess. But yes. So okay. In terms of weapon, we talked about the speed, we talked about the ammo, we talked about the damage. Overall, there is very little to be done. Heck, there's the hitbox size that has already been addressed. The only thing left really is the fire rate. I think that like shooting more often would be nice, not on his primary fire, on his secondary fire, just a little bit. I think we could play around with a little bit more primary fire. That's something that would obviously need to just like put a number tweak in the game, test it out extensively, see the result. But I think that we could look into buffing that, and I think that's the most tweakable knob that Genji has in terms of his weapon, as we just looked at from all of the others, essentially. You know? Because as we addressed, like his projectile speed is fine, his ammo is mostly fine, his hitbox size is fine, right? His damage is fine, etc. I think Blade is in a very good state. I don't think we really need to address Blade. I think his major perks need to be addressed. They need reworks, they need to be better. Oh yeah, this just made me think. Spalo was talking about this, but perks are something that higher rank players usually get a lot more value out of than lower rank players. Not always, but usually. Because not only are they more invested, so they will think about them more and they will be able to learn those perks better. But also a lot of it is just because they pick the right perks. A lot of the sim players pick the transform TP, which is your broken cooldown, into a garbage shield perk, right? In low ranks. Rather than I become one of the best duelists in the game because I have ridiculous self-regen on my TP. Not only can I now contest 2 lanes with a single TP, I now have a ton of extra health on top of that, so now TP is even more broken, you know? So that could be one of the reasons why Genji has a lower win rate on the higher ends, because his major perks suck. His minor perks are Thanos. Dragon's Thirst is probably one of, if not the single strongest minor perk in the entire game. Swift Cuts would be picked if not for Dragon's Thirst. Swift Cuts is better than both of his major perks, and both of his major perks are probably some of the worst in the entire game. If you actually gave Genji good major perks, his win rate in high ranks would probably become a lot healthier immediately. Alright, have a good one, Arya. Thanks for stopping by. And thanks for all the gift subs and everything. Yeah, where was I? Oh yeah, the perks, right? So we would have to take a look at the perks. I don't know how much I want to dive into this. I already have some suggestions, like you could lower dash cooldown when you don't hit people or when you actually hit people, right, by 0.5 seconds. You could give Genji a little bit of HP per target hit rather than the boring meditation healing. Although that could cause problems with like Blade Sustain when you start dash chaining groups, because then you have Dragon's Thirst plus overhealth from this. That could be a problem. You could have a critical deflect, like Ben Max has suggested, which I really like as an idea. There are a bunch of different ways that you can try to take these. They're much more tweakable and much more interesting than raw damage or raw sustain or something like that. I know that I suggested some sustain, although I think that the sustain idea that I suggested is at least more interesting than the deflect one, because it is a duality of aggression. It's not just hey, I use my defensive cooldown and now it is even more defensive, right? It's, oh no, I use my cooldown, it can be used, that if I use aggressively, I am not really using it defensively, but now the aggressive use also has a defensive use, which is kind of the nuance that Swift Cuts has, right? extra ammo if you hit dashes, that's something that should be on base kit. That's something that just should be on base kit. And it shouldn't even be related to just hitting dashes, although it could be. I think it should just be you gain 3 ammo when using dash, that's it. Helps clip chains. Just helps him without really addressing much power level. It just makes him feel better to play, you know? Yeah. But perks are not something I have given too much thought into, like making 2 really good and well balanced major perks. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that the only knob that we haven't talked about is the or dash, right? You could look to increase dash damage instead of shuriken damage. You do need to be careful about that. Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure I know why I haven't really addressed or even spent any time thinking about dash damage. If you increase this, suddenly Nanoblade is back on the menu. Because right now, 110 becomes 165. 50 becomes 75. So add those 2 together and you have 240. So if you increase dash damage by 7.5 points, I believe. No, just 7 points is already enough, right? But they wouldn't put dash at a broken 57 damage, right? They would do like a whole 55 or 60 or 65. So yeah, you can't really meaningfully buff dash damage without creating issues again with Nanoblade. And it's one of the best things that they did with Season 9 was make Nanoblade not as obnoxious to go into, which opens up Genji to be balanced in other ways to be much more fun to play. You can deal more shuriken damage or something like that because there is more counterplay to Nanoblade even though it's still very broken. It feels less cheap. Could just be a passive? No. Absolutely not. That kind of perk needs to not only be balanced around other characters having the same type of increase, but also around the opportunity cost of not getting something else. Safety cuts is an incredibly broken thing that is only held back by Dragon's Thirst just being one of the best perks in the entire game. And that's one of the things that I find interesting about balance. Swift cuts, the fact that I pick swift cuts 0% of the time nowadays does not suddenly make it not broken. It's just that there's something even more broken that I pick over it, you know? Just because something isn't used doesn't mean it isn't broken. You can have 10 different broken things, right? At the same time. Sort of having to hit them. Yeah, kind of. One of the main reasons why I hate Venture is the whole stat thing. You're just a stat monster. You're less of a stat monster than you are a Vendetta, because you have a bigger hitbox and less actual sustain overall. Like, you feel more killable than a Vendetta, even if maybe you aren't truly. And like, a lot of the duels of Vendetta or Ventures feel fair, because if they make a mistake, I'll triple headshots, and I'll destroy their HP bar. And I'll easily deflect their one-dimensional shoots, drill dash, shoot combo, right? I'll get close, shoot once, deflect, that's their combo, I now shoot again and dash, and they're dead, right? If I hit my damage. It doesn't feel like I can do that against Vendetta, right? But yeah, Vendetta to a certain extent is just like my frustrations with Venture just turned up to 11, right? It's just the V becoming V plus on the callouts. And it's funny, now you can't even just call them by Ven because there are 2 Vens now. Venture, Vendetta. What now? So yeah, I don't think the dash damage can be tweaked. So realistically, in terms of what I would like to see Genji tweaked, I just want him to shoot a little bit faster on his secondary fire only, right? So M2. And then perk tweaks, namely major perks tweaks. I don't know why I made this box. Maybe I'll just do this. Majors. That's all. So Genji, the reason why I did this is because a lot of people have so many suggestions about how to change Genji specifically, but thinking through what a lot of these would do in terms of like how you would have to balance the entire rest of the roster around some of these changes, or just tweak so many things within Genji's kit that it becomes too much trouble. It really puts into perspective what changes are actually worth looking at or not, right? And these are some relatively simple changes that could do a lot for him at high ranks without really addressing the low ranks too much. Yeah. But other than that, looking at the other characters, I already talked about the strafes, I already talked about the hitbox sizes, right? Those are some things that have to be looked at individually about some characters. And this does not just apply to Genji, by the way. Most characters in the game have the same types of complaints where some characters too consistent to shoot at and some characters too inconsistent. There is a reason why basically everyone complains about Kiriko's dueling potential, and I think a lot of it, people misplace the hate on the TP, on the Suzu, right? When a lot of it is just how inconsistent the duel is. If your accuracy, or if your predicted accuracy, right? If your consistency in a certain duel is to hit like 30% of your shots, there's something wrong, because that does not feel good. And the important part is that the less shots that you're supposed to hit on a certain target, the more volatile duels are, right? So, some duels, Kiriko is gonna look like a coughing baby, because you're gonna hit 2 headshots and she dies. Because she's squishy. Some duels, you're gonna miss every single shot, and you're gonna feel really mad. And this is gonna happen a ton. But because there is such a big inconsistency, Kiriko consistently flip-flops between just dying randomly and being unkillable. This is terrible, because you can't really plan around the duel very much, because of how inconsistent it is by nature. It feels awful to go into the duel not knowing what side of the jackpot you're gonna roll, right? So I hate this flip-flop from the hitbox. It needs to be more consistent. It's not fun for the Kiriko, it's not fun for the player playing against the Kiriko, and while sure, things like TPing through walls are obnoxious, or maybe you could address Kiriko TP the same way that Wraith in Apex Legends got nerfed, by adding a little bit of a cast time to it. I think that looking at hitbox and strafes, not just for Kiriko but for a few other characters, are one of the best ways that you can address the feel of the game overall. Because it's not just about Genji here. Every character has the same type of scaling of like some characters just are infinitely easier to duel than others in terms of shooting at them, right? And whenever a duel flip-flops like these, because the expected consistency of shots at them is a very low amount, like 30% or something, then you create these wide variances that are awful to plan around and just play around. Because how should you handle it? Should you just not duel her because of this? No, you need to duel her, you need to force her out of the angles. But how should you handle it? Should you just consistently play the duel cautiously because there's always a chance that you miss everything and then she's just hard beating you and stuff? No. You just need to roll the gamble, which sucks. It doesn't feel skillful to have a lot of stuff feel like a coin flip. I'm pretty sure that there isn't much that can be done about dash hitbox. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of the dash hitbox issues are simply caused by ping. And one of the main reasons why I say that is because when I'm playing against Sigma, I can consistently dodge rock. Why? Rock has a windup, and that windup is so long that even on ping I can easily dodge it. You know? So I don't think that people dying mid-dash is so much a dash issue and more so just like people live in different areas and they're not playing on LAN, so there is latency. Tracers are gonna die using recall. You're gonna die using deflect. Isn't the deflect issue the same as the dash issue? It's not two different issues, you know? So I'm pretty sure it's just latency there. Okay. That would address one of Genji's complaints as well as complaints about other characters too. But yeah, this is, I think, is one of the important ones because if characters like Kiriko are relevant and Genji cannot consistently 1v1 her because of after this nerf, because now her matchup specifically feels awful to hit any damage in. That's gonna impact his win rate in high ranks a ton, for sure. But I would like to mention other characters. Not just because I think it strengthens my points.
Unlocked.
I'll put this to good use. Jim dandy.
But also because I think that these are characters that need to be addressed. Venture feels like a stat monster. You just have a lot more survivability than Genji, and for less effort, and that would be fine if you didn't also have better kill threats. One of the annoying things is that if I play Venture, even doing like very simple, oh, here's backline. Oh, I'm gonna try the new guys. Ooh, I'm gonna go in. Oh, never mind. This gets infinitely more value than a Genji actually engaging because my kill threat on Venture is so high, the combo is so easy and so consistent to land that players have to put an unbelievable amount of respect to it. Multiple people are gonna look at you digging in. Multiple people are gonna try to punish you. Multiple people are gonna back up a ton. With Genji, that's not the case. People are often gonna be confident taking the 1v1. They know that you have to hit a lot of shots, right? So they're not gonna give you as much respect. They're not gonna give you so much value just for engaging or looking to engage, because you're gonna need to actually prove, right, that you're gonna get the value. Venture does not have that issue. Venture is so unbelievably consistent that they get value for free. They don't even need to actually engage, just the threat of the engage, because the consistency gives infinite value. Sure, move skills, sure, but at the same time Genji has passive mobility and deflex can be used also as safety, right? I think I was in practice range too long or something. So I don't think that is too worth looking into. I could be wrong here, but yeah. But I think that my main issue is that Venture is too easy for the amount of value that they get. Like the shots, even if you miss, still land good damage, and they're very forgiving to hit. And they hit like a truck considering that you don't headshots. And sure, you do need some good damage because otherwise you're gonna be completely ignorable, just like a Mora, right? But at the same time, Mora isn't even ignorable even at a lower damage than Venture, right? Mora is still one of the best duelists in the game. Venture just cranks that up to 11. So I think that either the damage needs to be a little bit harder to land, a little bit lower, or just the fire rate needs to be addressed because this is too much. Can you imagine the outrage if Genji was able to shoot at this range, at this rate? Have a good one, Spongy. One of the issues that I have with Genji's current balance is that if the devs are gonna be fine with Genji dropping in win rate like this, and they're gonna nerf Genji the ways that they're gonna do, Venture should be treated the same, if not harsher. Because Venture, for the most part, is just a more obnoxious an easier version of Genji. Not perfectly, because Venture has some matchup differences, right? Feels harder to play into a Cassidy, feels better to play into Sim, requires less resources than Genji, etc, etc, right? But painting with broad strokes, Venture is just a variation of Genji that belongs in a place that is a lower pick rate and a lower win rate. And that's not currently the case. Venture has basically... By the way, even when Genji was being... People were talking about Genji being broken and perma-meta, which was pretty much the case, right? Although he never really pushed past win rates that would be obnoxious, right? He was always hovering around the 53% win rate, which I think is like the border of what is reasonable, right? If characters start to go into 54, 55 or above, it's really obnoxious. But for a skillful character that is fairly fair to play into, that is sitting at around 53% or below win rates, I think it is fair to keep him there, right? Venture was sitting at the same and wasn't really talked about. I know that Venture was banned a lot, but wasn't really talked about a lot. But Venture has always been basically living in Genji's shadow and doing so either at his same win rate or even above it for less effort and being more obnoxious. Those are my issues that I have with Venture. So if you're gonna nerf Genji projectile size, I want you to nerf Venture projectile size. Because it is criminal that Genji gets nerfed and now has an abysmal chance of dueling Kiriko, and I can feel like I can drool on my keyboard on Venture and still just easily win each duel with Kiriko, because even if I miss, I'm hitting. And my damage doesn't need to land headshots.
Old news.
And things like that. Really feels like a good venture. It doesn't even need to be a good venture. I have on this account (3 hours) on Venture. I don't think I played this character on Quick Play. 3 hours. The games that I've played on Venture have been games that I've mostly played against my will. If I consider the time that I put maybe accidentally or willingly in other accounts, I would have less than 10 hours on this character, practice-wise and gameplay-wise. And I somehow have a 59% win rate, and to be fair, this is not like an amazing sample size, for sure. But it's not just about the win rate, it's also just how I feel about the character. And I'm not gonna be biased here. I'm gonna be speaking very objectively, because I care a lot about the well-being of the game, not just like me being able to enjoy the character I like the most, which is Genji, right? I can always swap to Ball because I enjoy playing Ball a ton, and I'm gonna be very honest, even though I enjoy playing Ball a ton, I think Ball is unbelievably broken. I think Ball needs to be hard nerfed. So I'm not just gonna advocate for the character that I play to always be good and be buffed, right? No, I play Ball and I want Ball to be nerfed really hard, because a lot of the games, like I feel like 99% of the games that I play on Ball are winnable because Ball is just that broken. You're just basically unkillable, you can kill anyone. I'm not even gonna start. Basically the issue with Ball is that Retract added too much skill ceiling to the character to the point where it makes it impossible to balance. So if you are good at Ball, and I would consider myself fairly good at Ball, the things that you can do on this character are so different than the ones that someone that's just a little bit worse can do, right? That it's impossible to balance Ball for everyone. So low ranks are gonna suck at Ball. Even mid ranks or good players, right? Let's even just completely ignore ranks and just talk about good players that should have a good win rate on their rank, are gonna struggle with Ball. But then the best players are gonna make Ball feel so unbelievably broken, right? So Ball is just difficult. And even in this balanced state where Ball is at a negative win rate in high ranks, I still think that ball is broken and ball needs to be nerfed, you know?
Hamster triumphant.
And also ball is obnoxious even at low win rates. You know? So yeah. But I'm not gonna dive too deep into this. But yeah. Venture has just always felt to me like a character that you put infinitely less time and you do infinitely more than Genji. And that's not how it should be. I feel like Venture should basically always live in Genji's shadow, being a slightly worse pick. Because it's easier, because it's more obnoxious to play into. You know? Is it way easier for Retract? Disagree. In some aspects, yes, but also Retract. Something that I've seen is that a lot of players trying to learn ball hurt themselves more by using Retract. And this was the case for me too. My first 100 or so games with Retract, I was actively doing worst. Because if you Retract poorly, you're gonna fail. Now suddenly I'm stuck. I lost my entire cooldown and my entire play that should deal a ton of damage because I just missed my Retract. So now instead of getting more value, I just fad. Retract is a double-edged sword.
Targeting.
But yeah.
Let's make
I don't
history.
think I am alone in saying that Venture feels obnoxious to play into, that Venture is too easy for the value, etc. Have a good one, Nautilus. What would be the best way to nerf Venture? That's the thing. This is not something that I have the best opinion on, so I'm not gonna state something the same way that I'm gonna state about Genji, about what's likely to be the best way forward and the best suggestions. I would most likely look into the fire rate and maybe into making the combos feel harder to land, so maybe the projectile size. But I'm not knowledgeable enough on the topic to really know how much that would affect Venture and Venture's viability, and if that wouldn't just nuke the character out of existence. Now, nuking Venture out of existence would be less of a problem for the game than nuking something like Genji, Tracer, Winston, Lucio, whatever, right? Because, again, the difference in skill and the difference in fairness to play into, but we still don't want to nuke characters for no reason, right? Especially if those characters could land in healthy spots, right? I feel like a character like Venture is not unsalvageable. I feel like a character like Roadhog is unsalvageable. Spylo pretty much gave up on Roadhog, right? And there's a reason for it, right? This character is just... The devs just wrote themselves into a corner when they designed this character, so it's just awful. But I don't feel like that's the case with Venture. But I'm not gonna make too many ideas. You could look into Venture sustain, like ability to sustain, and they did nerf the shields a little bit. This really didn't do very much or enough. But I really feel like one of the biggest issues that people have with Venture is the skill to reward ratio. You miss, you still land damage. You're extraordinarily obnoxious, you get too much value out of just doing this and even disengaging and not actually engaging.
Coming through.
You know, you fire too fast while having too forgiving of shots and too damaging shots, you know? That's probably what I would look into, but I'm not knowledgeable enough to truly talk about this. This is more so a place where I'm knowledgeable enough to complain, not enough to suggest ideas for reworks or balance tweaks and stuff. Okay. The worst part about Venture is that I will feel like I'll be playing infinitely worse than Genji, and I will often feel like I'm throwing with the way that I'm playing because I'm not executing better, or because I make more mistakes, and I'll still easily be winning. You know? I never feel that way with Genji, really. Like, I would rarely win matches that I feel like I'm not doing much. And I would rarely have such a discrepancy between what I'm feeling and what I'm actually doing, you know? Like with Genji, if you're not really doing much, you usually feel it very fast. With Venture, you could be feeling like you're not doing anything, you're doing a ridiculous amount of stuff. You know?
Oopsie daisy.
I don't remember if there's anything else that I wanted to address in the discussion. There is something to be talked about Zarya and Diva's win rate in GM/champ right now. And their design just being like very boring and one-dimensional and stuff like that, and warps the game in an unhealthy and boring way, etc, etc. But that's not the kind of stuff that I really think belongs in this discussion. And I also don't know how interested or knowledgeable I am to go over these things. I do think that there is some issues that are somewhat related that I can comment on, like Venture kind of making Genji or Vendetta kind of make... Vendetta is less of an issue because new character, and this has been consistently something devs do, and we kind of just have to accept it. It's more so gonna be a concern if Vendetta just like becomes the default to go to above Genji after being nerfed into a normal character, right? And stays easier to execute, right? And continues feeling cheap and everything, right? But right now it's mainly like the comparison between Venture and Genji, and how Venture feels like they're punching out of their niche and stealing a lot of Genji's viability and sneaking behind Genji's shadow to evade nerfs, right? And in terms of like this whole character identity and niche thing, and like the spar mention that I had earlier, Ashe is punching out of her niche. Cassidy is not only punching out of his niche, but is also being tweaked in an unhealthy way for the character, where he really should just be a close range bulky brawler, right? Rather than being able to outduel Soldier at Soldier's effective range, right? Like, that's just stupid. And sometimes even outsnipes an Ashe. Not always, but like in maps that don't have such a big range discrepancy, even then Cassidy should not be able to beat Ashe. So just like there's such a mess on the hitscan roll in general about like the ranges and stuff that it's just like the devs have been creating such a mess here. I feel like Echo should not have as evasive of maneuvers as she does, considering that they kind of have started to lean into a more poke-oriented Echo rather than a similar character to Genji, in that she is a little bit bulky, less bulky than Genji, but like 250 HP character that plays mid to close range, right? Like I feel like Echo with the mobility buff is now become not just, after they changed her to be a better sniper and less so of a close range character, they have made her back to her old effectiveness close range with her new strays, while also maintaining the range buffs, which is weird, you know. There are a lot of things there, but I need to make sure to keep everything within scope. I don't think that they need to buff Cassidy damage. Cassidy already has one of the best damages. He fires extraordinarily fast, he does not need a scope, which is a big benefit in a lot of situations where, let's say, you need to move around and things like that, you know? But I do think that he needs less range. Like, I don't know, I feel like this is criminal. Yeah, this is not a 2-shot anymore, but this is, and I think that this is like 25 meters away.
Enemy spotted.
Yeah. Yeah, like this is just criminal, you know? Like, this does not feel like it should be a thing in the game. And the problem is that if they wanted Cassidy to have this range, they need to nerf his survivability again. You wanna know why? Because of Roll. It's not even so much because of Hinder. Because Hinder has much more of an outplay than Roll has. Because Roll just makes him secretly have a lot more HP than 250.
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Oftentimes when you're dueling him on Genji, it feels like he has 350 HP. So him being nerfed from 275 to 250 barely does anything. Roll is still Roll, and Roll is still gonna deny you a ridiculous chunk of damage. But now that Cassidy has more range, now Genji feels like, where do I play? I need to be very cautious in close range. The duels are already very hard against him. And to be fair, they should be. Cassidy should be an alternative that you pick against a character like Genji, Tracer, or whatever, right? Although it needs to, the devs need to make sure to balance it to make it feel fair, right? And doable to fight him. Not just like an 80 duel for the Cassidy and a 20 for the flanker, right? Or something like that. Not saying that it currently is, right? But if one of Genji's tools against Cassidy used to be that you could play outside of his effective range and poke him out a bit, and then later on sneak through on the backline or something like that, right? But at least like in the poke phase, you could actually use your range against Cassidy to not get really destroyed by him and land some decent damage on him and other people. So that the poke trade would be a lot more fair. Because the close range was also a lot more fair toward the Cassidy, right? There needs to be some balance there. It can't just be Cass beats Genji up close, Cass beats Genji at range, right? Because then that's not really a healthy matchup, is it? But right now it kind of feels that way. Because of the extra range, while still maintaining a lot of his bulk through Roll. Roll does less against Tracer, but still does. He's still bulkier than your average hitscan, you know? So yeah. But that's gonna be it for me. I have been talking for way too long. So I'm gonna need to just like stay quiet for the rest of the day pretty much. Because I've been abusing my vocal cords a little bit too much. Because I've been talking enthusiastically about these topics. Because I have strong opinions on them. I've spent a lot of thought on them, etc. Yeah. Have a good one, everyone. I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.